let's do a little bit of practice. I'm going to show you some scenarios, and then you've got the 4 possible responses there. I'd like you to choose which one you think seems like the most viable.
James is hitting me.
James is hitting me. Which of the 4 responses? Thanks, I'll take care of that. I don't think you need to worry about that. I didn't see that happen, but I'm glad you know how to behave. How might you handle that? Think about which one would be the most helpful to this child. Mark your response and take a look at the way this supervisor handled it.
You know what? I bet you could take care of this problem. How might you handle it?
Clearly, in this particular context, saying, thanks, I'll take care of that would be inappropriate. It says, oh, gosh, you probably can't take care of yourself. I'd better do that for you. That's a disservice to this child. We don't want to end up becoming the protectors of our children because it says they must be somehow incapable of taking care of themselves. You don't want to say, I don't think you need to worry about that, because in fact he does. If he's being hit, that is a problem, and he needs to figure out some strategies for taking care of it. The third one might have some applicability, but it's not as strong as the 4th one. I didn't see that happen, but I'm glad you know how to behave. That doesn't give the child any chance for saying, hey, help, how do I handle this one? If, on the other hand, you put the responsibility onto the child, how might you handle that? If the child can't come up with ideas, you can help. You can help him generate what some ideas might be. Let's take a look at a second scenario.
You guys are doing a nice job over here.
2 big boys are hitting a 1st grader by the swing.
2 big boys are hitting a 1st grader by the swings. You look over and you can't tell. There's a crowd of people over there. You can't tell what's going on. How might you handle that? Thanks, I'll take care of that. I don't think you need to worry about that. I didn't see that happen, but I'm glad you know how to behave. How might you handle that?
Thanks a lot. I'll take care of it.
Clearly, if there is any possibility of physical injury, check it out. First and foremost, all of the things we're covering on this sheet are all secondary to, if there's a possibility of physical injury, check that out. That's first and foremost, and then all of this other stuff can take place. Let's look at number 3.
Be careful, please.
Okay. Nicole and Sherry are yelling at each other.
Nicole and Sherry are yelling at each other. Thanks, I'll take care of that. I don't think you need to worry about that. I didn't see that happen, but I'm glad you know how to behave. How might you handle that? Let's take a look at what this supervisor did.
They are. Well, I think they can work it out. Don't worry about it, okay?
Clearly responses like, hey, I'll take care of that, or how might you handle that? We don't want the child to think she's got to handle it. Those 2 students are dealing with it. Let them go ahead and deal with it. Let's look at situation number 4.
Hi, Corey. Hi, Chris.
2 boys over there are saying bad words.
2 boys over there are saying bad words. Thanks, I'll take care of that. I don't think you need to worry about that. I didn't see that happen, but I'm glad you know how to behave. How might you handle that? Mark what you think.
I didn't hear him, and since I didn't hear him, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm real glad to know that you don't think that's a good idea. Let's go check out that jungle gym over there.
I didn't see that happen. I'm glad you know not to behave that way. And then she goes and she gets the student involved in something. And if we're really on top of it, what's the next step? Take a swing over by where those students were and see if you hear it. And if you are hearing it, then you correct that behavior. But you don't want to do the direct, well, let's go check that out, because it implies now I want you to help me be the policeman of this playground. Let's look at number 5.
Dusty threw a rock on Katie's head.
Dusty threw a rock and hit Katie's head. You look over and there's a crowd of people around. What's the best response? Thanks, I'll take care of that. I don't think you need to worry about that. I didn't see that happen, but I'm glad you know how to behave. How might you handle that? Let's take a look at what this supervisor did.
Oh, thanks for telling me. I'll take care of it.
Clearly, that's a situation where the child is being socially responsible. Somebody might be hurt. Supervisor needs to check it out. As much as possible, what you want to do then with tattling is if there's any possibility of physical injury, you check it out. Otherwise, you want to gently put the responsibility back onto the child. that they need to handle it themselves in some form or another. Dealing with conflicts. One of the issues that does happen on any playground is conflicts between students, and the first thing that needs to be done is a decision needs to be made split second, and it's sometimes very hard to make this judgment, and occasionally we make the judgment wrong. But the first thing you've got to decide is the situation physically dangerous? Take a look at a situation here, and the first thing you want to do is diagnose, is it physically dangerous?
You're out. No one knows on the line. Well, you're out, you're a cheater. No, I'm not, you blind.
Stop. Stop it right there. Hold it.
Do we need to treat that one as physically dangerous? Some yeses, some no's. It's specifically been created to be borderline. Let me tell you what my thoughts on it would be, but yours can differ from this. My feeling is there's a relatively low probability that by the time the supervisor got over there and had a chance to intervene, there's a very low probability that from this point on that you've seen that somebody might be hurt. If the supervisor hadn't intervened by the time she did, there's a good chance that they could have gotten to the point of fisticuffs. But she got there early enough. Everybody stopped. They have, in fact, stopped. There's a very low probability now that I need to do something like send in the red card, that this is a crisis. I've got some time now. Given that I've got some time, let's call this a non-dangerous situation, as in B. And the first issue is avoid trying to get to the bottom of the problems. One of the major mistakes that's very easy to make is, what's happening here? Let's look at the kinds of things that take place if we take that approach.
Okay, now, hold it. What's going on here? What's happening?
It was in, he said I was out.
Stop. One at a time. Now, what's going on? What's your
It
story?
was on the line, it was out.
Uh-huh. It was just on the line here?
Yeah.
And that's causing your problems.
Give it up.
Well, now, wait a minute. You'll have a turn.
You called me a cheater with it, too.
Did you call him a cheater?
Yes.
What?
Is one.
Now, wait a minute. What's your version of this story? Why did you call him a cheater?
Because he thought it was on the line, but it was about this far in. This far out.
Well, now, wait a minute. We've got to settle this problem somehow.
And it goes on and on. And all of you know that we now have a very high probability of other kids trying to come around, because this is now fascinating to watch, because you know what the supervisor has created here? People's court. That's what the supervisor's created. And it's going to be fascinating. Don't you want to find out who's going to win and who's going to lose? Plaintiff or defendant? You want to try to avoid that kind of phenomenon. As much as you can, put the responsibility back on the students to use your school's conflict resolution strategy. If you're using something like Conflict Busters developed in LA Unified School District, you get that process going. If you're doing something like I've alluded to that I've worked on with a number of students, just very simple conflict resolution strategy, STP, stop, think, then plan, follow through on that, but recognize that in order for this to happen, 100% of the children need to have been taught these strategies in their classroom. Look what can happen if we approach it in this way.
You guys seem to have forgotten how we solve problems. First, we need to stop, and then we need to do what?
Think.
Yeah, we need to think, and then what do we do? Yeah, that's what we need to do right now. You've stopped. I want you to think now and come up with a good plan to solve this problem. If you need me, I'll be right over here. Okay, take care of it.
Notice that that whole involvement of the supervisor is about a third as long as when she was trying to get to the bottom of it. She put it on the students. She's now going off, but not away. She's going to stay relatively close to be able to monitor what's going on. If they need help, she can provide them that help, but it's putting it onto the students, and you can see that in all probability, it's probably not going to take them more than 10 seconds before they decide, well, hey, let's just play it over, or some very simple solution like that. But if the supervisor gets involved and try to find out who started it, then things just tend to snowball from there. With dangerous situations, if something has accelerated to the point of physical danger, send your red card. Send your red card. Get that in there right now. And even if the situation has calmed down by the time someone has come out to assist you, that's fine. But if you're in doubt, send that red card in so that you get assistance. If we're talking about something like a fight, a true physical fight, not the minor little pushing and shoving that we had in this scenario, but I mean it's a fight at this point. Go over near the students, not real close because you don't want to endanger yourself, but go to within a reasonable proximity of the students, for example, perhaps from here to here, and blast that whistle. You need to stop right now, and you're hoping that the abruptness of the noise will in fact stop it. If it does, great. Then you go ahead and go into your conflict resolution strategy, plus you'll probably send them into the office for having been physically dangerous, although send them in one at a time. Right? There should be a little bit of lag time so that they're not walking in together. If they don't stop when you do the blast on the whistle and the attempt to verbally intervene, if they don't stop, physically intervene only if you can do so without injury to yourself or increasing the likelihood of injury to them. If we've got two, let's say, sixth graders, and they're in a clinch and they're rolling down in the dirt, there's a relatively low probability they're going to be hurt. Now, you've dealt with the red card, so you've got some help for separating them. But if you, as one adult, try to separate them, often what can happen is you separate them just enough so that somebody can get a swing. And if they're in a clinch, they probably can't get a swing in. You can pull them apart just enough that a kid can get a good swing and break another child's nose. So you can actually, by trying to physically intervene sometimes, unless you can do it real easily and get them apart like, yeah, now, unless you can accomplish that, you're probably better off not physically intervening, and you are not obligated to put yourself in physical jeopardy in this. We've got lines of communication, we're getting help, then we will get them separated. If you can't get them separated, and it would be dangerous to try, get the crowd to disperse. And I mean do it fast. You people, right now, go over to that blacktop area, or I'm going to take names, and you people are going to be in as much trouble as these are. Go now. I mean, you communicate that you've got to get this crowd. It's not, hey, go, please, go away. It's very strong. It's very assertive, because one of the major reinforcers for continuing in a fight is the attention of the crowd. So get that crowd to disperse, and it reduces the need to save face by being the winner of this fight. Let's talk very briefly about handling a crisis situation. I've alluded a number of times to this red card idea, and the main thing I want to say about this now is whether your school is using this or not, please make sure that you as a playground supervisor know and understand how do I communicate to the office in the exceptionally unlikely event that a child is abducted, in the exceptionally unlikely event that there is an injury so serious we need an ambulance. But make sure that you have, in fact, discussed that with your administrator and you know what your response is going to be. Let's flip over to the last page, if you would, and page 10. Make sure that you periodically review your playground issues, policies, and problems with the building administrator, classroom teacher, and other playground supervisors. I think this sort of discussion should happen at least twice a year. Playgrounds are complex and dangerous enough that we've got to talk about this stuff on an ongoing basis. If involving the entire faculty is inefficient time-wise, do it as a representative committee, but make sure you have at least one representative of the primary staff and one representative of the intermediate teaching staff, because if it's only the administrator and the playground supervisor and we're not getting the input from the teachers about how they feel things are going, we're not getting enough of the picture put together. To conclude, there's a little checklist there. Those are all of the types of things that you as a supervisor need to make sure you know before you go out there to supervise. And if you don't, or if situations happen when you are out there and you're unsure about, please feel comfortable going to your building administrator and saying, I have a question. Sometimes our paraprofessionals feel like they can't bother the principal because he or she is so busy. But you have such an incredibly important job to do that you've got to know. Principals who might be here, you don't have to know the answer. Don't feel like if they come to you, you've got to have the answer off the top of your head. It's perfectly acceptable to say, boy, that's tricky, I'm not sure. Hey, let's get a committee of some teachers together, the playground supervisors, and let's brainstorm Tuesday afternoon, and we will come up with an answer to that question. Make sure then that you're creating the lines of communication so that playground supervision is not just the job of two people. It is, in fact, the responsibility of the entire school. Thank you very much.